Chido Obi hasn't played a single minute for Manchester United's first team this season. एक साल पहले he was one of the most exciting teenagers at this football club. So what exactly has changed? Is this a setback or is this actually a very smart thing which Manchester United and Ruben Amorim are doing? Welcome to PN Playbook, where we look past the headlines and try to break down the thinking behind each decision which happens in a field of football. So let's try and understand the context. Last season, Chido Obi was one of the most highly sought after prospects in world football. At the age of just 17, he made his Premier League debut, became one of the youngest ever players to play for Manchester United. He even featured in the FA Cup games, started a league game very late in the season. Obviously, the expectations grew. But what people assumed was next season he kicks on. He will become an understudy for whoever the new striker is going to be. Knowingly or unknowingly, we had accepted the fate that Rasmus Højlund was going to leave. We also accepted that Chido Obi will be a first team rotation player here and there. But you see, in football, development is never linear. In fact, I will say it's rarely linear. So, what exactly has changed in this season? So, this season under Ruben Amorim, Chido Obi hasn't featured at all. In fact, he's not even been on the bench. He's back with the under 21s, where he's being rotated very regularly. He's always been kept away from the spotlight. If you think about it rationally, more often than not, everyone will say, hey, it's a step back. But internally at Manchester United, the thinking is very different. In fact, in today's article at Athletic, they say that he is not ready for first team exposure. Last season, his debut came way too early. United had to push him because there were so many injuries, the form for the players were bad. Eventually, United reached a stage where there were not even 15 players to compete on the bench. But this season, it is all about control. Last season, it was all about necessity. For a change, Ruben Amorim is trying to exert his control on young and youth players' career, which is a good sign. Now, obviously, Ruben Amorim's public comments on entitlement is not helping anyone. He questioned multiple things. If you carefully look at the interview, there were three aspects which he questioned. The first one, obviously, being why doesn't Chido Obi Martin start every under 21 game? Post that, Chido Obi actually put up a post on Instagram and then deleted it. He even hinted a sense of entitlement to all the youth players who are playing across multiple clubs for Manchester United. But obviously, it was going to create headlines. But here is the most important aspect which a lot of football fans missed. Chido Obi isn't being intentionally rotated or isn't being intentionally dropped. His rotation is a part of a development plan. The under 21s are developing two strikers, not one. One is Gabriel Biancheri and the second one is Chido Obi. All the public comments aside, the development plan for Chido Obi and the other strikers haven't changed one bit. Probably the execution of the messaging, very poor. But we all know, right? Ruben Amorim is an extremely honest man. He will say what it comes. But the strategy behind itself is absolutely understandable. There is no point throwing a 17-year-old in first team considering Manchester United's current position right now, where scoring goals is not the problem. But let's take a step back and think, how is actually Chido Obi doing in the under 21? I was not looking at his numbers, but then what I did was I started looking at his performance, and let's actually change the perception around a bit. He scored 5 goals in 15 under 21 appearances, of which 6 are only starts, and more often than not, he's been brought on as a sub player. He's recently back from a shoulder injury, which had kept him out for almost 5.5, 6 weeks. He's facing much older, much stronger defenders. He's often man marked. Now, understand this aspect in football very clearly. A player or a striker is usually man marked only if the opposition feels he is a threat. At youth level, he is being dominated physically, which is understandable, right? When you play a certain player of a certain age group, he or she is going to get dominated. So, what is he learning? The first thing he's learning is he's trying to find space. As a striker who's playing for any club, more often than not, you can score goals. But it is a great striker who scores goals by finding space. Chido Obi is learning to find pockets of space in the youth level, which is the most important aspect for a modern day striker. He's learning to play with his back to the goal. If you think about it, one of the factors which Manchester United looked when they signed Benjamin Sesko was he's a great lone striker, which means he can play with the back to his goals. If you try and understand how Sesko scores goals, you can see the goal against Sunderland. A set piece came, he was waiting there, back to the goal, turned and then flicked and a goal. Now, the hard part of the development is not regularly playing for first team, which is understandable, but it is the most important part of development. He's been trying to be taught how to use his power along with his skills. So, what does this mean for his future? Inside the club, there is a lot of confidence for Chido Obi. He is not being dropped. In fact, every youth team coach and Ruben Amorim himself has said that his finishing is ice cold. Now, if you think about great Premier League strikers, you have Erling Haaland, you have Didier Drogba, Luis Suarez, Wayne Rooney. Their finishing is lethal. They don't give you second chances. Chido Obi is showing those skills in the youth level. His mentality is quiet but obsessive. He analyzes his own game constantly, which sometimes leads to overthinking. Right now, the coaches feel that he needs to relax a bit. See, there is no rush to loan him out in January. There is no panic. There is no knee-jerk decision. United believe that they have a top player. If he gets this phase of development right, the payoff comes later. The most important aspect for any footballer at that age is very simple. They say patience now, impact later. Now, what is my final take on it? My final take on it is very simple. For Chido Obi, what I think is this is not a setback. This is a very strategic slowdown for a striker which United believe they've got gold in their hands. United rushed him once. They don't want to repeat the same mistake. And any player who's rushed at that age more often than not fades away in the later stages of their career. Chido Obi is still very much a project, but one with a huge upside if handled properly. And in football, timing matters as much as talent. There is no point throwing a 17-year-old striker in this current Manchester United team where the team has major defensive issues rather than issues in the forward. Now, most important part of this video, if you really enjoyed this kind of a tactical breakdown and understanding of how and why players are being played in different positions and what can be done, subscribe to PN Playbook, which is my new channel. There is no hype, there is no overreaction, just proper football strategic thinking. Thank you. See you in the next video.